you've got to love the sound. It just sounds epic. Welcome to another episode of Charlie Drives. Today we are back in the Boxster after a successful track day. I thought I would just do a bit of a video to summarise why I think this car is worth it and why it makes sense as a car that can be used for daily use. It can be used for just having a bit of fun with, and it doesn't cost very much money either, or it shouldn't cost very much money. However, in my case, as you know, it's cost me a little bit more than what I thought it would. But anyway, let's go for a drive. So it's been about 8 months since I bought the car. Most of the time that I've had it, however, it probably hasn't lived the best life since I bought the car. Obviously, I only had it for about 3 weeks and then managed to destroy the engine that was in it last time. If you've not seen those videos already, click on the link up there and I'll share that story with you. So I would recommend going to watch those videos first. However, since we went off and got the engine repaired, there's a whole series on that as well. I'll include some links to the series of the engine rebuild where my brother-in-law Douglas came over to basically fit a second-hand engine that we went to go and buy, and we put it in the car. And ever since we did that job, I've been using the car pretty much on a daily basis. The engine came from a crashed Tiptronic 986 Boxster S. So hopefully, given the fact that it's a Tiptronic, means that it's not being hammered on as much perhaps as a manual car would have been. So generally, yeah, the engine feels strong. I took it to a track day a couple of weeks ago. You may have already seen the video. If not, I'll include another link to that. But I'm kind of just enjoying what I was hoping that I would kind of have out of this car when I first got it. And why does it make perfect sense as a car? I mean, if you can find a good used example, there's no reason why you should go through and worry about the experiences that I had. I know these engines have got bad press, but I think most of the bad press has come from poor maintenance. I mean, obviously, yes, there is the unfortunate IMS issue, and a lot of people suspected when I blew the engine up. Everyone drew conclusions and went, yeah, no, IMS, got to be the IMS that's gone. And it wasn't the IMS. It wasn't the IMS. The IMS was fine. Now it did look like the IMS had been changed in this car. So don't be fooled. Don't just go, oh, has the IMS been changed? Has the clutch been changed? Because that doesn't necessarily mean that the engine has had a good life. So, you know, the issue that my engine had was the conrod bearing failed. So yeah, it wasn't an IMS issue. And as Douglas has said to me many times, these engines are actually pretty good. There's not an awful lot wrong with these engines. So don't go, obviously you need to be aware that you can have issues, but don't go thinking that, hey, I'm going to buy a 996 or a 986 and I'm going to have engine problems, because the chances are you probably won't. So yeah, generally, you know, why does this car make sense? Well, A, easy to drive. I mean, it's a mid-engine little sports car, so it's easy to drive, it's got the performance, so you've got a bit of fun. The flat six sounds pretty damn good, especially when you've got the roof down. But even now, just giving it a good drive, having a bit of fun, it works well. Taking it on track. A couple of weekends ago, took it on track, had a great day. Went round all day long, no problems whatsoever. Granted, I think I could probably get a set of maybe decent tyres for this car. The tyres that are running on it at the moment are a little bit questionable from the perspective of I've actually never heard of them before, and they're not matching. So, you know, I'm not saying that it's all about tyres. For sure, it's not all about tyres. It's about the driver. But you know, getting a decent pair of grippy tyres would probably do this car a world of good. The other beautiful thing about this being a naturally aspirated car is the throttle response. It's incredible. As soon as you put your foot down, it goes. It really does. And I think when you've got the roof down and the weather is a little bit warmer, what more can you ask for? I mean, yeah, you can go and buy a more modern Porsche Boxster or a Cayman or something like that. And I've tested a Cayman, granted it was a 4-cylinder Cayman and a 4-cylinder 718 Boxster. And for the money, for the price difference, why wouldn't you go ahead and buy one of these? Because it really does make sense. I mean, given, I would say, in the UK market right now, you could probably go and buy one of these cars. You can pick one of these cars up for £5,000 to £6,000 to £7,000. I wouldn't spend any more than that on one of these. Of course, mine has probably cost me probably close to around the 10k mark, given it's had to have a new another engine put into it. From that perspective, it makes zero sense for me to sell this car. I mean, I would hope that somebody, if somebody was interested in buying this car, they'd have seen the videos and hopefully would associate some additional value to you know, some of the components that we've put into it, and you know, spent quite a lot of money. I mean, I spent more money on other parts than I did on the actual used engine. So you know, a lot of good stuff has gone into this car. There is always, I think, purely because of my experience so far, I think I've always got a fear that it's going to happen again. And I know it's silly because really we've done everything to this car, but I just can't help that feeling of, oh, what happens if it happens again? The track day I did, I really enjoyed myself, but I think I had that niggling feeling that, oh, you know, last time I was doing this, I blew the engine up. Am I crazy doing it again? Probably I was, but I exhausted a lot of emotional energy just worrying that maybe something was going to go wrong with the car again. And when you're sort of £10,000 in the game, it kind of worries you a little bit. So I know I've just got to get over that and just drive the hell out of it and really enjoy it. And that's what I hope to do on the next track day. So what are my plans for this car? Well, certainly looking at options with regards to, do I take it more seriously and, you know, maybe start stripping it out, get a hard top roof and potentially just use it for more track focused stuff, get some sports seats in it. I mean, these aren't the actual hard bucket seats, so they don't sort of keep you in as much, especially when you're sort of throwing it around a track. So it could, you know, potentially could go and get some nice sort of race seats for it and strip out some of the interior, maybe get a racing wheel and stuff. But I want to try and keep it road legal so I can use it still. The other thing is, with the other cars that I've got, this at the moment is the most practical car that I have, so it makes sense to keep it as the daily driver. And yeah, I mean, generally, if you can go and get one of these cars and be luckier than me and say you've spent £5,000 or £6,000 on it and you don't have engine problems, I mean, it's free motoring essentially. You can drive this around for years on a daily basis and probably sell it for what you paid for it. I don't think they're going to drop in value any more than they are. So from that perspective, it does make sense as a car. So yeah, option one, you know, get it more track modified, track focused. The alternative option is just keep it good. The interior is in pretty good condition. I still get that 996 feeling from it, so I don't feel like I miss my Porsche 911 as much. So yeah, I mean, you know, I could certainly keep it good. Let me know in the comments what you think I should do. Do I change the headlights? A lot of people have said go for the clearer, more modern looking lights in terms of the headlights and the lights in the rear. So, you know, let me know what you think. And just because a lot of you have been asking about when Douglas is going to be returning to the channel, I have asked him to prepare a little video. I was going to sort of maybe give you sort of my top 5 tips on what to look out for when buying a used Porsche Boxster, 9XX Porsche Boxster. But I thought it would be fun to let Douglas send a video to me, which I will include in the video now. Top 5 tips, what to look out for when buying one of these cars. Go Douglas.
My 5 top tips at looking at a 986 Porsche Boxster. Things that... Now these tips would be that you already have an idea of what you're looking at when you look at a car. If you have to go and ask somebody if it's got dodgy tyres, then this isn't for you. But for those that are genuinely looking at buying, my top 5 tips are going to be as follows. So the first tip will be the convertible top and the interior of the car. Boxsters were pretty famous for having issues with getting wet on the inside. When you go to it, first off, feel behind the driver and the passenger seat. Kind of feel any dampness back there. The push rods were kind of famous in those cars for braking. They're metal rods with plastic ends. When the plastic snaps off, the push rod will then push into the bag liner and it'll puncture a hole in it, and when it rains it'll get wet in the inside of the car. So tip 1, look at the inside, make sure it's not wet. Look at the condition of the push rods on the convertible top, make sure that they are in decent shape. So my next tip is going to include 3 things from the interior that are known to cause issues and can cost a little bit of money and some headache. First thing, the ignition switch. These things are famous for having problems. The mechanism that connects the ignition barrel to the steering lock for the steering column gets bindy and it doesn't allow the switch to turn properly. It gets vague, it gets to where it sticks and start. Sometimes you won't be able to quite make start. Sometimes it'll go ahead and you'll just touch it and the accessory will kick off, or the set to the key will kick off the run position. So watch out for that, because that's kind of money, 300-400 quid I would guess. It's been a while since I lived in the UK, but that'd be kind of my guess anyways. Second thing, headlight switches. They're famous for having trouble. Charlie's car actually has suffered from both these issues. His 996, the headlight, I remember, gave some trouble in that car, so it's common. Last thing, window regulators. Look at the overall condition, listen to them, make sure that they go up and down like they should. When you open the door, it should drop. When you open the door from the inside, it should drop, and then obviously return. The regulators, run them all the way up, run them all the way down. Listen to them. They'll get kind of crunchy and grindy. Once again, it's money. And every time people go into these doors, they never seem to put them back quite right, because every one I've ever come across that I've done a window regulator in, the membrane that lives behind here, wet liner, is always torn and never put that together properly, and the clips are always broken, because they are MF clips. But if you know how to do it, you can get them apart pretty easy. Point is, check those, check that, check that. So, check. So third thing is suspension. Upper strut mounts, particularly the ball bearing plates that allow the strut assembly to turn. They're famous for getting noisy and creaky, and they come apart. Particularly in the UK, I would say it was probably more of a problem, because a lot of salt that you have on the roads over there, it gets in the plate over time. They're kind of costly to fix. And then sway bar links, the part that attaches the strut leg to the sway bar itself. The little spherical joints get worn and they get super noisy when you go over a bump. Rear end, kind of the same thing. They don't wear as much, but they get noisy in the rear, so listen to them. Again, these are all things that, you know, if there's a funny noise, what could it be? More than likely, it's going to be something along that when it comes to suspension issues up the front. Control arms are pretty solid, lower ball joints pretty solid. The way that they're constructed, pretty solid all in all. But have a look at those, listen to them. If it doesn't sound right, it probably isn't right. So that's my third tip. So, tip number 4. On these cars, headlights, have a look at the condition of them. They're expensive to replace. Most of them look like crap. But anyways, look inside the headlight, particularly where the reflector's at. Make sure the reflector doesn't appear to be burnt out or melted. Also, the wiring in these headlights and the mechanisms that release them can become very brittle and they will break, and it's very aggravating trying to put a simple headlight bulb in these cars. So look at it, because again, it's decent money. It's another 200-300 quid probably per headlight to replace them if you want something decent. The other thing when you're at the front of these cars, have a look down at where the radiators are at. So there's one on the left, there's one on the right. Have a look inside there and look for any kind of debris, any kind of damage, anything that you see that maybe, ooh, radiators there, condensers are there, condenser being for the air conditioning, radiator obviously being for the cooling system. Have a look at the fins. Also, they get full of debris. It doesn't hurt to come with an airline, perhaps something, and just kind of dig them out, try and get all the crap out of them, because they do act a little bit like shovels, to be fair. There's a lot of airflow goes across them, as there should be, but there's also a lot of debris, so people typically will neglect that and forget about it. And one of the biggest troubles that we see is if they don't clean them out over time, the leaves and everything else will sit there and they'll soak and it'll just stay constantly wet, and then you'll start seeing rust kind of develop around the bottom of the frame that holds the radiator and condenser assembly in place. So that's my next tip. Have a look at the front end, look at the headlights, look at the condenser, look at the radiators, kind of just make sure everything looks good up front. So my 5th and final tip comes to the powertrain, which is engine and gearbox. First thing everyone talks about with a Porsche, the first thing I always get is IMS bearing, IMS bearing. They fail, yes. It's sometimes hard to tell when they're getting ready to go. Some people claim they can look at an auto logic and watch the camshaft deviation, bank 1 versus bank 2, which is true, but you've got to have an auto logic and know what you're looking at to be able to do that. Me, typically, I'll listen to them. I'll kind of look at the overall condition of the engine, see if it's been neglected, see if it's high mileage or low mileage too. IMS bearings typically fail in low mileage cars that were never driven much. The bearing, as a lot of people already know, required splash to lubricate it, and ultimately when they're not driven hard or not driven enough, they dry, and then the bearing runs dry, and then that's ultimately what leads to its failure. Water pumps, listen to it, they fail. They get really rowdy. The idler pulleys, the tensioner pulleys, the same thing, they'll wear, they'll get noisy. Alternators go bad in them too, so just kind of have a good listen to everything. Spend the time and learn how to take the top off the Boxster and look at the top of the engine. Very rarely do you find that they've been maintained properly. Air filters not changed, power steering fluid not changed, the reservoir's right there, that's how you check the power steering fluid in that car. So those are kind of my overall tips for engine and powertrain. Listen to it closely. Put your foot on the clutch, listen to it. If it's a standard car, listen to the throw-out bearing. They'll get jingly when they get high mileage on them, or if they've been abused a lot. When you put your foot on the clutch, you'll hear it. When you take your foot off the clutch, there's no load on the bearing and it goes away. Other than that, they're pretty good. The Boxster, for the money, is a great handling car. It definitely, like everybody says, is an entry-level sort of track car. Well worth the money if you can find a good one, and you know what you're looking at when you find the good one. So I hope these have been some help to you. They're not the definitive guide at all to what to look for in a Porsche Boxster. It's just another guy as an independent that kind of fools with these things and what I see on a regular basis, which I do a lot of Porsche. You know, there's a 996 turbo there, there's another 996 there, there's another 996 there. There's no Boxsters though, so you know, nothing to worry about if it rains today in good old rainy Florida, not sunny Florida. Anyways, I hope this has been some help to you all. I hope you guys have got to glean some things off it. There's a lot of hype about these cars. There's a lot of people that claim they know. I'm just telling you what I've actually experienced and what I see as being issues.
Anyway, hope that made sense. Thanks Douglas for your input. I'll keep you updated with what I plan to do with the car and what happens next with the car. And if you're liking the videos, please subscribe. Makes a massive difference. There will be plenty of videos coming up now that the weather hopefully is going to start getting better. We've got got a few surprises down the line with perhaps a little bit of a change around in what cars are going to be on the driveway. But equally so, if you want me to do a video on your cars, yeah, okay, I'm not a motoring journalist. I just kind of like drive these cars to provide my opinion and just maybe that kind of more practical consumer advice. But if you want your car featured on the channel, please get in touch. I'll leave the details on the screen with how you can do that, or even just get in touch and leave a comment on the video and let me know. I'd really love to sort of do more content. A lot of my content is with the cars that I own, but it would be great to sort of start to mix it up a little bit. So anyway, thanks a lot for watching. Please subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and I'll see you for the next one. Cheers, bye.